Hey, gonna make a personal finance video on two main topics today. It's gonna be minimal editing and it's kind of a working session with you here on my screen and some web links and stuff. So while the editing and quality is pretty low, the information I'm hoping is really wonderful for you to take advantage of. So please do stick around. I'll give you the agenda to see if it interests you right now. I want to talk about the rule of 72 and how that plays into investing, as well as time, how significant time is in investing. That's the first major topic. The second major topic I want to talk about is kind of two individual ideas combined together to make a grand idea. So, what do I mean by that? 2.1 is 2.1 of topic number two is I'm reading Warren Buffett's biography right now, and since a very early age, he took every dollar he spent in his head and just times it by 10. And that was like the opportunity cost of investing the dollar in his head, the lost opportunity. I want to combine that with this other idea I've had as of recently, kind of profound to me, was, you know, all of us when we're at the store, let's say you make $25 an hour and you're at the store and you want to buy something for $50. You're like, oh, that's like 2 hours worth of work. But I'll show you here in this video, it's kind of the last thing I'm going to go over, how you don't actually make $25 an hour. You make significantly less. And so you internally justify spending $25 or $50 on something and you're like, oh, that's only an hour or two of pay. It's really not. It's probably closer to like 10 hours. And I want to show you how that works. And so, yeah, let's jump into it. So, number one, we're going to talk about the rule of 72. The rule of 72 just says you can take a static number, 72, and divide it by your rate of return as a whole number, not as a decimal. And that should equal the time it takes to 2x your money. So I want to show you with facts, at least according to Fidelity, 5-year, 10-year, 20-year, and 30-year returns. 14, I'm just rounding right now, 11 and 10. So let's just take the least common denominator here, 10% over 30 years, and let's see how that plays into the rule of 72. 72 divided by 10 is equal to 7.2 years. So it takes 7.2 years to 2x your money, right? Pretty straightforward. It's not exactly math. It's not exact math, but it's a rough approximation you can do in your head to be roughly right. All right, so let's give two examples. Let's say you're 20 and you retire at 65. So that's equals a 45-year span. And let's say you're 40 and you want to work until 65 and retire. That's a span of 25 years. So we'll start with 45 and we'll start with 25 down here. These are the spans. So this is when you're actually 20 years old. All right, I'm gonna pull up our calculator. We're gonna do a span of 45 years. Oops. So we know it takes 7.2 years to double our money at 10%. So we have 45 years divided by 7.2 is 6.25 doubles. 6.25x. And then we have 20 years, 25 years divided by 7.2 is, we'll round up to 3.5. 3.5x's. So in this case, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 6.25. Then down here we have 1, 2, 3, 3.5. Okay, let's say that we start with 10K on each. Okay, 10K becomes 20, becomes 40, 80, 160, 320, 640, and then 1/4 of that. 640 times 0.25 plus 640. It's 800. 800,000. Down here we got the same 10K starting, becomes 20, becomes 40, becomes 80, which becomes 120. Okay, so if you start with the same $10,000 on day one at the age of 20, which is this top one, versus 40, which is this bottom one, it's a difference of a lot of money. 680,000 difference, 120K to 800K. I don't tell you this to discourage you as a 40-year-old who's just starting to invest. I myself didn't start till mid 30s. I tell you this because of the old adage of when's the best time to build a tree? Well, years ago. When's the next best time? Today. So start saving and investing today. Time is your enemy or your best friend when it comes to investing. So you can use the rule of 72 to determine how long it takes to roughly double your money based on some rate of return, with the stock market average being close to 10% in the last 30 years. So that's the rule of 72 and how time plays into investing, which I think is all very important. You know, here's something to ponder on. My sister, I'm now an uncle. So if you throw 10 grand into a 1-year-old's account, oh man, let's extrapolate that over this one here. So 65 years divided by 7.2 is 9 doubles. So we got to go out to 9. So 7, 8, and 9. So let's scratch this one. We don't care about that. 6 from 640 becomes 1 point, numbers are getting big now, 2.8 million, which then becomes, I'm just going to start rounding, 2.5, which becomes 5.0 million. It's a little bit more than that. So just throwing 10 grand into a newborn's account, a brokerage account, throwing it into an index, assuming 10% over 65 years is roughly going to be about 5 million bucks. So you can see how time is critical. So if you have 10 grand laying around when you have a newborn baby, just throw it into an index fund, which I'll cover next, and let it grow till the day they retire. So I'm going to cover another question I didn't quite put in the agenda. Where should you put money? I'm not a financial advisor, so don't sue me. I'm just going to give you the advice and the opinions of other great investors. Well, one namely, Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett is a trader / money manager from day one of his life. Ever since 6 years old, I've been reading his biography. Ever since like 6 years old, this guy's been a capitalist, selling packs of bubble gum, making 1 and 2 pennies, saving it and investing it and doubling his money. And he's had 90 something years to do that. So unless you plan on being someone like that, he says, and this is cited all over the place, you can go look it up anywhere you want, Warren Buffett's golden rule for the average person is to just throw your money into a index fund of some sort and let it grow. Some index fund that has historically performed well. A common one that most people reference is the S&P 500 index fund. So what is that? I'm going to give you an example with a very common one that's kind of all over the internet. VOO is a S&P 500 index fund. The stock ticker is VOO. And all this is a ton of people, probably millions of people if I had to guess, giving tens of thousands of or millions of dollars to Vanguard. Vanguard takes all this money and puts it in a big bucket, a big ass bucket worth trillions. And then they invest it across 500-ish companies in various sectors based on their performance in the overall market. So if you went to the S&P 500 index and you saw the top 500 performing companies, they're in this fund. And you can see that down here in the portfolio composition, their top holdings here and what percentage they represent. Now, obviously, it's very tech heavy just because tech is the highest performing stocks right now. We have one that's a non-tech right here. I don't know what Broadcom is. It looks like telecom, so maybe not necessarily tech, but and I guess Amazon's not. They have AWS, they're tech. But the point is, instead of you going and distributing your money across the 500 top performing companies and buying shares from each of them, which first off, if you just bought $1 worth of every company, that's 500 bucks. So it's unrealistic to go buy the top 500 companies on your own. And so what an index fund allows you to do is to do that by throwing your money into a big bucket, and then the big bucket goes and buys shares on your behalf. and then your share of VOO is representative of the underlying assets, which are all these companies. So that's what Warren Buffett suggests you go and invest in. Um, that is the Fidelity article I was showing you here, the S&P 500 average. That is a hint or a nod towards a fund like this one. So in theory, in the last 30 years, if VOO has existed for 30 years, which I don't think it has, you in theory would be up 10% in overall right now per year. Um, who also supports this line of thinking is a guy named John Bogle. John Bogle is the original founder of Vanguard, and Vanguard's a money management firm. Like they manage money. They have all these funds and stuff that they manage money in. And the very guy who created this company says in his book, The Little Red Book of Common Sense Investing, I can't remember the exact statistic, but it's above 85%. I think it was 92%. He says 92% of people who manage money underperform to the index average. And so the guy calls you up on the phone, hey, I'm with Edward Jones. I want to manage your money. That guy, 92% of the time, does not get the returns you would get just throwing your money into this thing and passively sitting on your ass and waiting, according to John Bogle. So given the fact that John Bogle, the guy who started Vanguard, and Warren Buffett, the overall best investor we've ever had, both advise the same thing, that's what I'm doing. So all my money is into some sort of S&P 500 index fund. That is my quote growth / high risk / everything investment strategy. Is it the most ideal? Am I going to make the most money? Well, obviously, possibly not, right? Warren Buffett's outperformed the index most years. But I'm also not Warren Buffett. I'm not even going to pretend to be Warren Buffett. I'm not going to pretend that I can time markets. I'm going to pretend that I'm average, like most people, and I don't know what I'm doing, and this isn't my day job. So I'm going to do what the people who are really good at this tell me to do, because you'd be dumb not to listen to them. Every time I've tried to time the market in Robinhood, being a degenerate YOLO day trader, I've lost money. So I'm sure many of you listening to this video, same story. So stop doing that and just do this. Lots of companies, money management firms have an S&P 500 index fund. It's like here's the equivalent through Fidelity, a Fidelity 500 index fund. And if you look down at the composition, the top 10 holdings here are roughly the same with the roughly the same percentage allocation. So if you want to pause real quick and look at this box, and you compare it to this box right here, it's going to be very similar. So they're all the same, kind of in a way. They have subtle differences. I think the top 4 or 5 here are 1 or 2 difference between the two, but essentially they're all the same. So you can't really go wrong on these things. Just pick one and go with it. Pick the one that has the lowest fee. They do have nominal fees, small fees. Expense ratio 0.03. Anything above like 0.5%, so 0.5 is bad, according to something I read in the past. It doesn't seem like a lot, but anything above 0.5 or especially 1.0 and above, which most managed funds are 2% or so, they're just robbing the majority of your gains. Even though it's only 2% of the 10% you gain, I'm not going to go into the math of it. They actually end up extracting like 40% of the gains at a 2%, even though you're getting 10 or something like that. So do not surpass like 0.0, I don't know. Like this is okay, but 0.05 or 0.5 is bad and above. Don't do that. Do something less. Unless they're actually like hella good and they're Warren Buffett or something. Anyways. Okay, so this video is getting a little long, but that's okay. That's all very important. If you work for a company that has a 401k, you should invest there, especially if they have a employee match. Employee match is free money. If they invest 4%, if they match 4% and you invest 4%, you're getting 8%. You're instantly doubling your money. Some companies have an investment period that you have to wait for the money to mature and become yours. But I won't go down that rabbit hole. Point is, if there's a match, do the full match because you're doubling your money literally on day one. Do that. That's the best. I don't know anywhere where you get 100% return in one day. So do that. Then you can, what I do, don't sue me, but what I do is I think once I max out my match, I then go to my Roth IRA. I think a Roth IRA is a better investment vehicle than 401k just because of the tax advantage that it offers. Both accounts are considered tax advantaged accounts. 401k, your money goes in before being taxed, but then comes out and gets taxed on the way out. Roth IRA is the inverse. And so you take post tax money, money you take home after taxes, and you put it into a Roth IRA. You can go to any bank and start up a Roth IRA, and that money grows tax free. So when you take out, say, you invest 50 grand over a couple years, well, it would take like almost 10 years to do because of contribution maxes. So in your 20s, you max out, Roth IRA every year, and you never touch it again, and you hit 65 and it's worth 500,000 or whatever. All that 500,000 comes out tax free. So that's pretty cool. Each type of account has different max contributions per year. Here they are. If you want to pause it, 401k max for a single is 24,500 for 2026, and then for Roth IRA for 2026 it's 7,500. That's the max you can contribute to these things each year. Once you max out your Roth IRA, you can go back to your 401k, or you can open up a brokerage account at your local bank or online like Robinhood and invest on your own. The last thing I'm going to say about retirement accounts is oftentimes, especially when you do an employee sponsored 401k account, they ask you, like, they give you a short survey, like, what level of risk do you want? How long do you have till retirement? And what they do is they have like a list of, say, 10 funds that they have, and they're basically risk adjusted and age adjusted based on your responses. And once again, these are managed funds, so they probably underperform to the market average. So what I usually do is find out how to convert my 401k account to a self-managed account so that you're not putting your money into one of their recommended funds. Instead, you're putting it wherever you want. And what I do is I just go invest it into an S&P 500 index fund every time. So my entire 401k sits there, my Roth IRA sits there in these index funds, and I just don't care what happens. And I never look at it. I don't even know how much is in either account because I just never look, because looking just causes anxiety, and I don't want anxiety in my life. Inevitably, in some amount of years from now when I retire, it's going to be more than what I put in. At least that's the theory. All right, so enough about that. Okay, so the last thing I want to talk about, which I think is the most important part, it's also the main reason I wanted to make this video. It's going to be a lot of working in real time with you here on the screen. I kind of impulsively decided to make this video because of this theory or this profound discovery. I'm not going to claim that I invented it, but it was profound to me. Anyways, on my other screen, I determined that I Googled what's average income in America, it's 60 grand. I went into ChatGPT and asked effective tax rate in a state like Utah on 60 grand. It said 25%. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to take 60K. It's a little bit below the average. I'm just keeping numbers simple here. And we're going to convert this to hours worked, hourly rate. Okay. There's 2080 hours in a work year as a white collar employee. 60,000 divided by 2080 is an hourly rate of $28.85 per hour. Okay. Cool. So some of you are thinking, oh yeah, so I'm gonna just round up a buck, call it 30. It's roughly 30, and something that's at the store. Let's say it's a new game for $60. Game is 60, which is roughly equal to 2 hours worked, right? To buy that. Well, you're absolutely wrong, and I want to show you how and why. So this $2.85 per hour is pre-tax. Okay. So now we're going to scratch the whole salary thing and we're just going to stick to hourly. 28.85 times 0.25, which is the effective tax rate in a state like Utah. It could be higher or lower in other states. So I've got my calculator on my other screen. 28.85 times the inverse of that, 0.75. You're left over with 21. So after you take out taxes, you're left with 21.63 per hour. Okay. So already that game is taking closer to 3 hours to buy. So now this game, this hypothetical game situation for $60 is what we're basing all this off of, is now 3 hours. Okay. But we're not done. That's just taxes. Okay. If you're working a salary job, making 60K, You're likely getting employer benefits. What's your deductions? Let's just say it's another 15% for investments, healthcare, vision, dental, etc. So, and we're going to take another 15% off of that. So it'd be 2163 times 0.85, which is the inverse. You're left with $18.39. Okay. So it's still about 3 hours to buy the game for rounding, right? At least the math of someone who thinks like this is still a 3 hour purchase. Okay. Now we're going to talk about all your bills because now you have bills and stuff that you can't avoid every month. So if you're renting or have a mortgage up to the max that a bank will allow you, which is roughly 40%, let's just dumb it down to, let's say 30%. 30% of your take home is, let's say, what you're paying for rent or mortgage. Now, 30% of your take home is this number in our equation times 0.3. So 30% of 2163 is $6.49. So we're going to take $6.49 off of this. 1839 minus 649 is what you're left over with. This number right here, this hourly take home rate, what you actually take home to the bank after you pay taxes and deductions for benefits, and after you pay your rent / mortgage, you're left with $11.90. This still hasn't accounted for, food, gas, entertainment, miscellaneous. God forbid your car breaks down. God forbid you have a medical emergency. You're likely in a high deductible healthcare plan, meaning you have 4 or 5 grand that you're obligated to pay before healthcare picks up the tab. Hopefully you have money in your HSA. So my point is, I'm not going to go any further down this rabbit hole. All of those things I just mentioned are definitely, worth something per hour, right? Like call it $5 or something. So, but already this $60 purchase is now down to a 5 hour purchase or 5 hours of work to pay for. And that's, like I said, not accounting for any of those expenses I just named off. So, call it, I'm going to be super conservative and say, you walk home with $6 an hour left in your pocket after all that stuff, which is now a 10-hour purchase to buy that $60 game. So next time you're standing in the store and you try to justify a purchase based on what you perceive your hourly rate to be, remember this. How important is that purchase? Because you're working for probably, 2 to 5 times what you think you're making to pay for that item. In this case, it was 5x. We thought it was 2 hours, it became 10. So when I started thinking like this, it changed what is my priority in spending? Like, what is important? What should I spend my money on? Now, to add on the last complex layer here is, yes, somewhere up in here, you're investing 10% as we calculated. But what if like leftover money was also invested? So let me give you an example. $15 eating out. Okay. I eat out all the time, not criticizing it. $15 is post-tax spending. And we already said that the tax rate is 25%. So I'm timesing it by 1.25. Oops. 15 times 1.25. So this meal actually costs you $18.75 of pre-tax money. This is what you at work have to earn before being taxed and deducted on to pay for this $15 meal. Had you just allocated $18.75 to your 401k, which is pre-tax, yes, it gets taxed when you take it out, and then you apply the Warren Buffett's ideology of opportunity cost of 10xing, so you times that by 10, and you get $187.50. At some future date and time, that $15 meal becomes $187.50. So next time you go eat for $15, the $15 meal is actually costing you close to $200 in 20 or 30 years from now due to the opportunity cost of investing it into something like 401k. I just want to end the video with, I didn't mean for any of this to be discouraging. I just want people to realize that every dollar you spend or invest matters a lot, especially when you introduce time into the equation. So I hope someone found this helpful.